The next thing I wanted to discuss are our bins in BC versus GP. Bins are very interesting in BC. Interesting meaning it's easier, it's more intuitive, processes differently. Now, in GP, we have two ways to do bins. One is transactional, one is non-transactional. The same thing is true for BC. So let's go to our cards in GP, sorry. So you have a bin site maintenance, and you also have quantities in sight. So let's talk about in GP the differences between the two, and then we'll go to BC and do the same thing. So let's go back to my favorite item, my capacity. All right, so you have what's called a default bin. That is, so your default bin, let's go back to that. All right, here. So this particular field is only informational, meaning non-transactional in GP. If you are going to use bins in GP where you actually want to transact on those bins that do not have any financial impact, then you would have to turn on bins in your GP system. In this particular environment, for me, bins are not turned on. So I would have to create a site bin relationship. Right, let me see. I do have GP 2016 set up, so I can actually show you in BC 2016 what that looks like. So when I say you would need to turn bins on, you would need to enable multiple bins. Okay, so notice turning when you do certain things in GP, same thing with BC, you do certain operations. Once you turn them on, you can't turn them off. And if you are going to change something and turn it on, it will tell you what you need to clean up or close or complete operations on before you can turn that particular feature on. So, in order to have a bin relationship in GP, you would have to make sure you turn that on. This would be your transactional bin operation in GP. Now, in BC, for the same process, meaning non transactional, and BC, you have what's called a shelf number. That is your bin relationship in GP, in BC. So if you're doing a migration and you have these bins set up, then when we migrate, we're going to migrate data that's in this field, this bin field, to the data that's in this shelf number field in BC. Now, if we're looking at bins, it's the same thing, bin to location relationship. So let's go and pull up some locations. So this window that I'm looking at right now that I just clicked on, this is called the Tell Me window. We call it search in GP. All right, so let's go to our locations. All right, these are all of our locations that we set. If you noticed on my posting groups, I have these locations out there as well. So I have my unspecified empty boxes, and then I have my locations assigned to account numbers. So when you have a bin, you would need to make sure it's set up in your location. So I'm going to go to the silver location. I'm going to highlight the silver location, and let's go to location. And then we have bins. All right. So here are all of the bins that I've assigned to my silver location. From there, if I want to look at the contents within that bin, meaning the inventory quantities, I can do that by clicking on contents. Now in GP, where that bin content information would be, if you go under inquiry, then you would look at bin quantities. And mine hasn't been enabled, so you're not going to see it here. So I do apologize for that. So with your bins in BC, you can make this very intuitive. If you notice, I have a location, the bin associated with the location, and the item number that can operate or can be transacted upon within BC. Now, I don't necessarily have to have an item number association, so I can leave that out. So let's do this. Let me refresh that. Sorry about that. Oh, and that's another thing I love about BC. Let's make that issue populate again. I want to clear this out. So BC will tell you immediately that there's a problem. GP does the same thing, but in terms of a pop-up window like you saw before. So this is GP will do something like this and show you have a problem. And you click it and go away. Whereas BC will tell you what the error is. So if I hover over it, it's going to tell me what I need to do and what the problem is. Now, the reason for this is because I have other items that are associated with this particular operation that I'm doing. So if I hit F5, then it will refresh my page back to its original position. So I don't have to worry about making mistakes that I can't fix on the fly. But I can delete the row. And I can do this. Now, as long as I don't have transactions, of course, I can do this. So let's delete. Yes. Now, notice I don't have a item location here, but notice what it's trying to do. It's trying to give me a unit of measure. So what I would need to do is make sure that when I go to set up my bins, I'm doing, if I wanted to use an item, I can. If I don't have to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you out to another window. Yes, I want to continue. All right. Let's go to another location. Let's go to my yellow warehouse. And there's something else I wanted to point out too. See where it says bin mandatory? When you're using bins, you can have bins that are mandatory to use per warehouse. So where GP, once you start use a bin, it has to be set up everywhere, meaning, let me show you in GP, pull up a window really fast in GP and show you. All right, so this is the GP item site default bin. This is my item, and when bins are turned on within BC, every time you set something up, you have to associate a bin with it. So purchase receipts, purchase returns, even if you're doing manufacturing, material issues, it has to have a default bin in order for you to transact, because when the inventory is posted, it needs to know what bin it is associated with. In BC, you can determine whether your warehouse is a bin mandatory warehouse. And you'll just toggle this on. Now from there, if you have bin mandatory, let's go back to bins. All right, notice I don't have any codes here. So I can set up codes. So what out of the box, you'll have just whatever Kronos has. But you can go through, delete the bins and re-add bins. So that's the one-to-one between BC and GP. Some similarities, but also some differences.